All right, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. Sean, I think we're on episode 29. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool, just eating some pistachios.
Pistachios.
These are really good.
Yeah, you always gotta have a snack with your beverage every now and then. So
good stuff.
Yeah, I love pistachios. We get these over at Costco. The Strickland by the bag. Love them.
Yeah, I'll try not to chew in your ear if you're listening. I assume you're listening. If you heard me say that, I guess you are listening. So
you brought some cookies. I think they're gone.
No, they're over here on the
side.
side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those were really good.
Yeah, Valentine's cookies.
Yeah.
So,
oh, yeah.
My wife is a baker for sure. She loves to bake. So.
Oh man, she made those, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, they're good stuff. It's a new recipe we found this year when we were making Christmas cookies. Mm-hmm. It's the same ones I gave you for Christmas.
Oh man,
just different icing, different color stuff, But hey, today we're going to be talking about, we're going back to, so we took a couple breaks on the last two episodes, talked about Super Bowl ads in the State of the Union, kind of timely stuff, and now we're back into breakthrough advertising.
Or get back into we're back into school. School's back in session.
School is back, yes. Christmas break or whatever break is over. We're in chapter 10.
10, yes.
And we're going to be talking about how to make those drawbacks in your product or service, like the fact that it's too complicated, it's not important enough for the majority of people, or it just costs too much.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about how you solve those problems,
redefine,
using copy and stuff. So that's pretty important stuff.
Yeah, redefinition, kind of redefining. We can probably talk about some examples today too on some products that we think of that were.
If we get lucky, we'll think of them. If not, we won't.
If not, we'll just talk about beer.
So, speaking of beer.
Speaking of beer, we've got a good one today. We're back to the dark finally. We kind of got into the lighter beers. We're not opposed to ales, but we really enjoy our stouts and our porters a whole lot. And so we're back today with a bourbon barrel porter from Innis and Gunn, Scotland.
Yeah, so this is brewed overseas.
Yeah.
However, it does say on the label that these are Tennessee and Kentucky bourbon barrels, so we're right at home, actually.
That's right. So we got a little taste of home, plus our mother country, too, because we both have some Scotch Scotch kind of heritage.
Name. Irish.
Yeah. So
I probably had to be careful about that because I'm sure there's a very big difference between Scotch and Irish when you get up there.
Oh, man.
It'd be like saying New York or Tennessee. It's not the same thing. So
you don't want to mix those unless you're truly Scotch-Irish.
Yeah.
So, because there's some heated, I think there's a little heated history there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to go visit someday, but.
All right. So you've already had a little sample.
I had a sip. I couldn't wait. Yeah. So while you were fiddling with electronics and stuff, I took a sip.
All right. Cheers.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Oh, man. That's like coming back home to where you belong.
Yeah, so that was...
keep this close to the...
During this recording session today, we've had a little Budweiser Copper Lager. We had a little Blackberry Farms catchy name beer that I can't remember. Something about a tree. I don't remember what it was. Boundary tree.
What's called blackberry?
Something from the Blackberry Farm. So
the
actual beer name is terrible because we can't remember it at all.
Bad label.
But this is just a bourbon barrel porter.
Innis and Gunn. We were listening to the YouTube video beforehand, and it's a kind of an interesting story. Yeah, we might link to it on our show page.
It almost sounds like they invented the bourbon barrel porter the way they were talking about it, and that they were putting beer in bourbon barrels, and apparently that was just a way to put some flavor in the oak barrels.
Yep.
And the workers originally were throwing it out until they tried the beer, and they were like, "Wow, this is really good beer."
What a waste!
And next thing you know, we have a whole new category of beer.
Absolutely.
So that's
they can make a fortune off something they were throwing out. I mean, come on.
How many times does that happen? That's actually, I think of a lot of a lot of things that we now take for granted as great products are mistakes.
Yeah.
WD-40, Post-it notes.
I was thinking, it's funny you mentioned WD-40 because that was more of an industrial type thing that kind of went by the wayside. It was used for more industrial applications, I think.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it became a consumer product.
Yeah.
So,
and the Post-it note story was that they were looking for some different types of glue for something totally different, and they finally found this kind of resin, this glue that didn't really stick long term. And then some guy, he like put it on the back of notes and used it for like music markers or something because it would come on and off. And now Post-it notes is its own mega $1 million industry just by itself.
Can you imagine?
Off a mistake.
Yeah.
I actually read a quote today. Oh man, where did I see that? But it basically said, failures are just a test with a result you didn't expect. I mean, just not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I read that. It's somewhere on the Facebook. So
yeah.
If you have Facebook, it's on there somewhere. Just look it up.
Yeah, just look it up. Because obviously if it's on Facebook or anywhere on the internet, it's gospel truth.
Absolutely.
So, this is actually a good lead-in to our topic today, which is redefinition, redefining your product. We're going to talk about we can share some examples today, but this is interesting. It's kind of a follow-up to our last chapter on gradualization. But sometimes it takes a little creativity, and it takes some... I guess there's always skepticism in the marketplace. Your target market may not believe or may not trust or quite frankly, they may not buy into your product.
Yeah.
So there's the opportunity. Some people may say, well, you know what? We took our best shot. Let's chalk it up to our best effort and go home. But there's opportunity there. You have to look at your product and see where there's opportunity to redefine it or rebrand it and put it in a better light. One thing that comes to mind before we jump into it is you mentioned a great example a few weeks ago for Breeze, which was a classic example of something that would probably fall under this, where a product that was meant to be to kind of freshen up your home. Well, some people didn't realize that it kind of went through a rebranding phase or a redirection in terms of what kind of that smell after you finish cleaning, a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
Whereas I think they were trying from an effort standpoint to make it like the initial part of the cleaning.
Right.
They had to realize from a market standpoint people weren't buying into that.
Yeah, it was more the cherry on top than it was, the cake, so to speak.
People weren't thinking like this is not going to make my house.
They were
cleaner.
trying to make it Lysol in the beginning,
right?
Like a disinfectant, clear the air, and in fact, it was more of kind of a punctuation mark at the end of the cleaning process, for people.
Yeah.
Now it's re-expanded into more of that first category, but to get acceptance. That's what it took. Another great example that just came to mind right before we went on the air is that everybody makes fun of fruitcakes, and I don't know who the copywriter was, but I think it's somebody I know, and I don't know if I'm right, but it might have been Gary Hindenburg, which is a copywriter. Not real famous or anything, but he's famous among his clients, I'll tell you that. But he's not one of those guys that gets out there with publicity and stuff as much. But may have been him. But there's a company out of Texas that made fruitcakes. Apparently fruitcakes still sell, but but there was a lot of bad language, ideas around fruitcake. And
the fruitcake has had a history of bad publicity. Let me tell you.
Yeah, we could definitely pull up a Saturday Night Live skit, I'm sure, for fruitcake to keep our Saturday Night Live streak going. But
my dad used to give those out. My dad used to be in sales, and he used to give those out to customers. And I cringe when I think about that. I literally
how he fired customers.
Cringe when I think you literally gave those things out to your
On
end of the year
purpose?
customers. Yeah, on purpose. Yeah.
So this copywriter rebranded, and that's really what redefining is. It's kind of a rebranding of sorts. Not a full rebranding. This case was a full rebranding.
Yeah.
But it's also a redefinition. And that was, he turned it into a Texas pecan cake. It's not a pecan pie, but a pecan cake. So he took all the benefit, the love and nostalgia of pecan pie, and combined it with some of the stuff that's in a fruit cake, whatever
Right.
that is, and
and
redefined it as a Texas pecan cake.
When you talk about pecan pie, you got me on board immediately.
Yeah. So if it's kind of like that, then you're more willing to try it.
Yeah.
And sales went through the roof.
Right.
And
because fruitcake sucks. I mean, seriously.
So I think they probably reformulated a few things, but and that's necessary. Sometimes it's just copy can fix it. Sometimes it's a combination of the copy or the branding leads you to an idea of a way to improve.
Yeah.
What we're going to talk about today is more of pure copy.
Yeah.
To fix not necessarily to fix, but to redefine.
Right.
Where you are. So there's 3 areas that you redefine, and I mentioned them at the top of the show, and that is number 1, if you're having problems selling, it's going to fall into basically one of 3 categories. One is it's too complicated or too hard to use.
Yep.
Number 2 is it's not important enough, which means it doesn't have a broad enough appeal to really grow sales. It doesn't mean it's not important to the people that are buying it.
Sure.
But if you want to expand sales, take over market share, it needs a broader appeal. You're going to have to pull in some new customers that aren't traditional customers.
Yep.
The beer we had a couple of days ago, the Budweiser, or not a couple of days, a couple episodes ago, the Budweiser Copper Lager, that's a way that Budweiser is kind of going after the craft beer market. People who are not going to drink Budweiser, they're going to give the Copper Lager a try because it's very much like you and I love the bourbon barrel. Same concept. It's a whiskey barrel, Jim Beam. It's a name we know. So we're like, well, I'll give that a try. Yeah. And I have. I've bought a couple 6-packs of it. Right. So it worked.
Without going too far. It's like, let's kind of inch you in and kind of see, kind of test the waters there.
Now, obviously, that's a different product altogether than Budweiser, plain Budweiser.
Yeah.
But it probably came out of how do we differentiate this? How do we redefine our brand?
Right.
And that's how it came. And that's probably going to happen if you go down this road.
Yep.
And then the third area is it just costs too much. And that's definitely something you want to learn to redefine.
Yeah.
Because you cannot, the chances of you surviving a price game where you're trying to go to the lowest price is a bad move. Unless you've got really deep pockets, that is not a game you want to play.
Yeah, because you end up commoditizing your product or service when you resort to price. That's the last place you want. That's the last hill you want to die on.
And the problem is, it's usually the first place people go.
I know it is.
They try to cut price first, thinking that'll make it more competitive. But the truth is, if you can't sell it, and this is not always the case, but a lot of times, if you can't sell it, $100, just cutting it to $80 is not going to be the difference.
Yeah.
There's a problem in messaging.
Right.
There's a problem in definition.
Yeah, because you can reduce your price without reducing your price, so to speak. I mean, you can reduce the perception of your price without actually reducing your price.
Yeah, which is exactly what we're going to talk about. So it's redefining the value.
Yeah. So, Sean, you say it costs too much, and I say, well, compared to what? Because there's always comparison that you make in terms of, what in your mind, what your price, when you say your price is too high, if you automatically default to your product being the problem, the price of your product, you've made a serious mistake.
I'll give you a great example. When I sell myself, that sounded terrible, but I sell myself on the street corner.
At top dollar too.
Top dollar. The way I get the most money. No, when I'm offering my service, whether it's copywriting, coaching, consulting, whichever those three it might be, one of the go-to things that I'll use to redefine my value is I'll say, Jonathan, you're having me come on to help you with this, this, and this. But the truth is, you're not paying for my time, you're paying for your time.
Right.
So what's your time worth? So, well, usually the people I'm talking to, their time is worth, multiples of whatever the standard rate is for coaching, consulting, copywriting.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to an executive who makes, $500 an hour, in his mind, he may think copywriting or coaching is worth $50, $100 an hour, right? But if I can show him how having a conversation with me saves him 3 hours, then all of a sudden that 1 hour conversation is now worth $1,500.
Right.
And all of a sudden I've redefined my value and my service.
Yeah.
And just
based on his own time, the value of his time. Yeah.
And nothing changed. So this is important to understand. If you're listening, like really get that. Like nothing in circumstances changed. I simply shifted and redefined my role in his life.
Yeah.
As I'm going to save you your time.
Yep.
I'm going to make your time more valuable.
Right.
And because your time is worth more. And, this is just human nature. Like the people I'm talking to, and it's not that they're being rude or anything else. They're going to naturally think, because they're, quote, hiring me, even though I'm usually qualifying them, like they think that their time is more valuable than mine naturally, even if it doesn't come, they think they're more valuable than I am. And I don't have a problem with it. Yeah. It's actually really good because it helps my sales process.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I just redefine that and turn it around that, look, if I can save you, if you would be writing this copy, and it took you 3 hours, but now I can do it, then you're paying for your time, not mine. Yeah. So that's one way you redefine cost. And we kind of jumped to number 3, but that's...
Well, price reduction is a big, I use price reduction all the time in, industrial sales because, but, unfortunately people make going back to people make the fatal error of commoditizing products or services based on the price of their products or services alone. Yeah. And so, you have to have a conversation with a prospect or customer that says, your price is too much. Well, let's have a conversation about how much you're wasting in, parts that are, bad parts every year. You're making, scrap, you're creating all this scrap, you're making bad parts, your process is generating a lot of wasted material. How much does that equate to? And let's compare the two and see, is it really, are you really saving that much money in shopping for something less expensive? And, usually if you can have that conversation, redefine it and make it more of a priority for their savings in terms of their bottom dollar, then, you can usually achieve what you need to there. So
absolutely. I'll give you another example. One of my clients, they're really good at inventory control. The guy the CEO came from an operations background. Yep. So he did a really good job of inventory control, did a really good job of making sure there weren't back orders when people ordered, things like that. So one of the things we talked about in some of the advertising and sales conversations was you won't have to put up with back orders, because that was a problem in the industry that he was in, is back orders. So people would order, 10 items and 3 of them would be on back order because of just bad inventory management. So then so what the other companies would do is they would send out the 7 items, back order 3, ship them as they came in. And that customer, the end customer, would end up with 4 invoices, 4 shipping charges, and then obviously that's accounts payable problem. Yep. It's the guys in the shop didn't have the right materials at the right time. So we made a whole advertisement and a whole sales argument around what back orders cost you. Yeah. And how we had 99.6% order fulfillment on the very first try. And it was one invoice. It was, one item for your accounts payable person. Your guys had the stuff when you expected it 2 days later instead of 2 weeks later.
Right.
So, that's redefining, even though we were a little bit more expensive and really not much. That was a very commoditized industry. It was another way to just redefine the value of dealing with my client as opposed to somebody else.
Right.
So lots of ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where you need, somebody, a consultant, a copywriter, somebody to come in and take a look at those things. But you can do it as a business owner for sure and just redefine the value you offer. So let's go through these three. Let's talk about if there's a kind of an overwhelming idea that somebody's product is too complicated or too hard to use.
Okay.
So the answer to that is simplification. Sounds obvious, right? If something's difficult, you simplify it. But how do you do that? So the example that he gives in the book, he goes back to the whole TV repair thing.
Yeah,
and
which we talked about last year.
It's from the 50s, 50s and 60s when TVs were very temperamental. Just moving them or, the heat and the cold would mess them because they weren't digital. They were mechanical. Right. So, wood, metal, expands and contracts, and it would just do stuff to the TV. Affect
all
reception.
Those big, huge tubes, good night. I mean,
TV weighed 500 pounds.
I'm telling you, it was like a large cabinet.
Yeah. I mean, I told you in a couple episodes ago, I helped a friend hang a TV, and the bracket weighed more than the TV, flat screen TV. There's nothing to it. It's just a plastic case and a plastic screen and, digital. It's amazing now how a 55-inch TV weighs 3 pounds or whatever it is. It's amazing. So
for $250,
and Super Bowl was just on, so all kinds of sales were out, and now March Madness is coming up. So they'll cut prices again.
Oh, absolutely.
Until the new models come out, and it's crazy. So how do you simplify something that people perceive? And that's a big point. You may not think that your product is that difficult because you've lived with it. Yeah. Your service or your product, you've lived with it. You've helped develop it. You've seen the iterations along the way. So to you, it may not seem complicated, but it could very well be to your target market. Yeah. So how do you simplify that? So one of the things that when people were looking at, when they were writing this TV repair ad back in the day, was that people didn't see themselves as repairmen. Right. Right. They didn't want to deal with the electronics and things like that. So he went into this, and in three paragraphs here, he broke down, he went from repairing a TV to maintaining a TV. So first of all, he redefined, this is not a repair problem, this is a maintenance problem. Right. So that was one of the big things. He talked about instead of your TV breaking down, there were symptoms that were happening beforehand that you could prevent. Easily prevent, right? And simple things. So I'll just go ahead and, I don't usually do this, but I'll go ahead and do this for this particular example because I think it's so good. I'll read the first 3 paragraphs of the ad. So 5 minutes a week for perfect reception. Right. So already we're redefining the time that somebody might think it takes to do a repair like this. These TV experts have discovered that your TV set is a great deal like your body in this respect, that it gives you warning signals before it has major breakdown. Right. So we've gone from having to worry about a major breakdown to just warning signals. Right. So that's far less intimidating than a breakdown. Yeah. Okay, well, if it's a warning signal, I can manage that. If it's a breakdown, that freaks me out. Yeah. So literally in one sentence, we dial back the complexity. Right? So then he goes on. For instance, after your set was installed, it probably played perfectly for the first week, but then it began to suffer from the vibration, the jarring, the interference of other electrical appliances in your home. The picture might suddenly begin to flop over or flicker. Lines may appear on your screen. Now, and this is important, if you had the knowledge to quickly make a few minor adjustments on the outside controls of your set, then you could correct those symptoms. You could keep that set playing perfectly, and you could prevent major breakdowns in exactly the same way they were prevented in these manufacturers' tests. So there's a ton of like really good copy that went in there. Few minor adjustments, outside controls. I don't have to open up the TV, right? So I would assume if I was a reader and somebody was going to give me a repair manual, I'd have to like open up the back of the box, and I have to get in there, and there's stuff in there I don't know what it does.
Right.
It's kind of like me is when I look at a Facebook ads account, for example. Like if I open up the ads manager, it freaks me out.
Yeah.
Like I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Super
it's just a spreadsheet, but like it freaks me out.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody like came along with an ad like this for Facebook ads and told me that there were minor things I could do on the outside of my account, and really that'd be talking about the copy probably more, or the images that I could repair, you know, or prevent my ads from breaking down. I mean, you really could take this ad, now that I think about it, and like rework it to make a Facebook ads course. So basically what they did in this ad is they just pulled back, or dialed back, if we want to use a pun. They dialed back the severity of the problems. Yeah. You know, so, and then the final paragraph was, if you do not have this knowledge, right? So here's kind of the takeaway. If you do not make these adjustments, then your set will weaken. You will get a consistently bad picture, and you will have to call a repairman. Right. So it's important that you understand the symptoms, the minor adjustments, so that you avoid the big cost. Right. Remember, we're talking about redefining price. If you don't do this, you're going to have to spend more money. Yeah. So it makes sense to go ahead and spend the money on our repair manual. Right. So that was a lot of words for an example of how to redefine something like price, and that a repair manual might cost too much. And that's what they were selling in this ad.
In today's terms, you could insert probably your vehicle, because no one repairs a TV anymore.
Right.
You know,
but I mean, like I was saying, it could be repairing your Facebook ads account.
Right.
Like what's causing your Facebook ads not to work?
What's
causing your, you know, your $200,000 trade show booth not to work, right? Well, it's just one big picture and there's no like headline on it. Yeah. If you understood these few minor, you know, differences in the way you display your trade show booth, you could get twice the visitors.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, whatever.
That can make the difference.
So there's all kinds of ways to do this. So if I was, in that example, if I was selling trade show booths, somebody might be like, well, $250,000 is a lot for a trade show booth. And actually I was in that business for a while back in the 90s. Yeah. And they were spending $500,000, $1 million on trade show booths back then.
That's probably average.
Yeah. So, you know, if I was selling trade show booths, I'd be like, well, don't worry. We've got, you know, graphic designers that know how to get more people into your booth and get more leads, more, you know, more interest. So it's actually not going to cost you as much because you're going to have twice as much traffic, you know, or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways we can redefine cost and price and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So the next one is that it's not important enough, broadening the market. Do you want to grab that or not grab that?
Let's see. Let me make sure I'm at the right. Broaden the horizon.
Page 160 is where I'm at. Escalation.
Okay, I need to jump ahead.
I'm going to take a sip of beer while you look for it.
Escalation. Okay, so you want to broaden the horizon of your product, to redefine the role of that product, the role that product plays in your prospect's life. You widen the area.
Same exact line that I highlighted.
Did you really?
Just
okay.
So you know.
That's the one that I underlined right there. And you widen the area of reward that your product yields to the prospect, showing him or her that it enters into dozens of vital situations every day. So again, you don't want to be exclusive. There's opportunities, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts. Mm-hmm. There's opportunities. There's other markets out there that your product or service could benefit. They could benefit from your product or service. So you want to make sure that you kind of broaden that net in your copy to make sure that you cover that.
I'll give you an example that I'm literally working through right now from a copy standpoint. Mm-hmm. I'm helping a client with, and that is, so they sell a course on how to create a physical products brand, and sell it on Amazon, and then sell it on your own. Mm-hmm. But how to create a physical products brand. So that appeals right now, the way they've been marketing it, to pretty much biz op, entrepreneurial types.
Sure.
They just want to. They don't want to go to work for somebody. They want to build their own business.
They're looking for
So, physical products is good as any.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I was looking at is how do we expand the market on this? Because I've read this book before, I knew to ask that question. And so one of the things I came up with is okay, well, let's look at, some of the different markets where products exist already. So, and literally this is every market out there, but just to use an example, if you were a foodie, you could go on Amazon and you could buy all kinds of foodie trinkets, from frying pans to, special tongs to not thongs. That's a different
tongs. Yeah. We just want to be clear there.
And there's all these, Pampered Chef's a good example of a company that made a fortune, selling trinkets for people who like to cook and all that kind of stuff, right?
Gosh, we have so much Pampered Chef. It's not even funny.
It's an amazing business. It's crazy.
It's like,
so I was like, well, what if we, instead of selling to the entrepreneurial biz op crowd, what if we broke off some of these markets, food, fitness, there's a whole batch of fitness products, travel products, you like outdoor stuff, you go hiking.
Yep.
What if I went after the people that love doing outdoor stuff and I showed them there's a way to make money off of their hobby? Mm-hmm. Hey, look, you're already, reviewing this stuff. You know a way to make these products better. What if I could show you how to build a business around that and actually pay for your passion?
Right.
Now I've opened up a whole new world by segmenting the market out. So I can go after foodies. I can go after outdoors people. I can go after fitness people.
Right.
I'm selling the same thing. I'm selling how to make money off creating a product, but I've opened it up to people who had not thought about
new markets. Yeah,
these people haven't necessarily thought about creating a business. So I've shifted it. I've I've redefined my product as a, how to make money from physical products to paying for your passion.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a totally different market, and I can expand way out into new markets. So that's something we're doing even right now as we speak.
Yeah, so you haven't changed the product's the same. You're just changing the whole perspective.
Yeah, I've redefined it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. By broadening the market and who it appeals to.
Yeah.
I wanted to read a little bit about one of these ads that he gave as an example. And it's funny because and this is kind of almost a side note to what we're talking about. There's something I noticed that Eugene Schwartz or whoever wrote this ad, he uses a lot of his own ads. I don't know if this was one of his or not. But there's something he does that I wanted to just point out from a copywriting standpoint that I think people overlook the power of. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to
go
take
ahead.
A little tangent here. Yeah. So I'm going to read the ad, and then I'm going to go back and break out the 1, 2, 3, 4.
The word power machine.
Yeah, the 5 words that make this ad work. So it basically says, revolutionary new word power machine makes you a master of English overnight. Automatically gives you a power-packed vocabulary to make your ideas crackle with excitement, to hold others spellbound with the power of your speech and your written word. Automatically spots embarrassing errors in grammar, spelling, punctuation you didn't even know you were making. Clears them up at once, frees your mind from worry, lets you feel at ease in any company gives you the blazing new self-confidence you need to make anybody like you to win people over irresistibly to your point of view. All right, so I read a lot of stuff there, but there's something that's happening, and I just realized as I read it, it's actually about twice as many times as I had underlined. There's something going on here in this ad that most people overlook from a technique standpoint, and that is how whoever wrote this ad makes the product, not the buyer, do the work. And the way you do that is simply by changing the verb, right? So revolutionary new word power machine makes you a master of English, right? So it's the word power machine doing the work because they added an S to the makes there, makes you a master of English. Automatically gives you, so again.
Automatically.
It's the word gives,
yeah.
Right? So automatically gives you, so the product is doing the work. It's not me, the reader, doing the work. Spots and errors, clears them up, frees your mind, lets you, gives you.
So I'm basically just sitting on my rear end.
You don't have to do anything. And that's
just drinking a beer.
So that is very subtle, but it makes you feel like the product is doing all the work.
Yeah. Which is what people want. I mean, let's be real. People are like water. They flow to the path of least resistance. Yep. And that's who your average consumer is. They're not, you got to make things easy, simplify things for them because they're looking for the path of least resistance.
Yeah, so you want your product to make their life easier, not for them to make their life easier. Right. So when you make your product, when you write the ad or whatever it is, the presentation, and you put the effort and the work on the product itself.
Yep.
And if you have a good product, there's a lot of truth to that. But you're humanizing the product and letting it do the work as opposed to your potential customer having to do the work. So just want to take a little side trip there. And then we already talked about price reduction. So those are kind of our big three things. Is there anything else that kind of jumped out at you in this chapter of Redefinition?
No, I mean, I looked at the example at the beginning of the chapter in Redefinition, using the soap ad, where I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah.
And we can probably relate that to a lot of consumer products today. But, using a soap that had kind of a medical or a medicine-y smell to it, and using that to redefine that. Some people could have said, well, I don't know how we're going to overcome this.
Right. Smells.
Yeah.
Kind of pungent. Yeah.
But it was pretty clever. The way they did that was, using what was their famous BO campaign.
Yeah.
BO being body odor. It got the prospect's attention, was focused on the odor of his own body, which he was told would drive away people. Obviously, so you're thinking, okay, so this soap smells bad, but as opposed to my own body odor, I mean, come on. I mean,
it's a different bad.
Choose your poison. Bad. Yeah, choose your bad. I mean, it's
better bad.
Yep, exactly. So
I love the line that he said in there. Powerful enough to do the job, but with a soap with the odor destroying power to make a longshoreman acceptable at a society ball.
And you're thinking longshoreman, guy that's just coming off the docks, and he's pretty.
So when I've talked in the past about creating word pictures with your copy, that is a beautiful example right there. Power to make a longshoreman acceptable at a society ball. And that's, if you listen to our last episode about the State of the Union, that's when I say visual and tactile language, that's what I'm talking about.
That's powerful.
Like you can immediately see.
I automatically pictured a guy in his.
You saw the Gordon's fisherman at a society ball.
Yep. Yeah. Standing around a bunch of guys with tuxedos.
Yeah, in his yellow raincoat. The guy off of Deadliest Catch is that.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Guy that's just risked his life and limb out there trying to pull in some money, hauling in crabs.
Yeah.
And he just goes in to hang out with a bunch of
And now he's
snobs
at the
with
Kennedy
tuxedos.
Center, hanging out at the ball at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
You know, and he had to wear Life Buoy. I think that was Life Buoy deodorant, just so he doesn't smell.
Yeah.
And nothing else would work. Like Ivory
Nope.
soap is not going to cut it.
Nope. Ivory won't work.
Yeah.
He needs something with some quote medicinal
Somebody
power.
else. There's another soap that did something. I think it was lava soap. Mm-hmm. You know, where they talk about it. It's so strong.
Oh yeah. It scrubs the grease and the grime.
It's like because it's got the pumice or whatever in it, the grit in it.
The grit stuff, you know.
Yeah, and like
gets those greasy hands clean. Yeah.
Like you wouldn't. I think they even did a campaign like that where they were like, you wouldn't want to use this on soft hands because it'll destroy them.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
It's only for people who do real work, like mechanics and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what this chapter is about. How do you take the things that are disadvantages of your product or things that people would doubt about your product in those three areas, and then turn them into benefit? How do you redefine it and turn it into a benefit?
I've seen example, you know, being in, you know, an industry, a manufacturing industry that I come from, where a lot of products that were started with intentions of being towards one market end up shifting towards another market.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, I think of something, you know, things like, you know, something as simple as polymers and fillers that go into polymers were once part of one industry, were used in one industry specifically. You know, some companies that I've dealt with where would realize that, you know, one thing that they're using towards an industry like the carpet industry is totally, you know, viable towards another industry if only they redefine the process and how it's used within that industry to help, you know, change the price. And we're not talking about cheapening or lessening their price. We're talking about how, you know, introducing their product into a different industry, redefining that in turn, and using that to saving that company, those companies money, you know, without, you know, just simply cutting back their dollars, you know, what the price is.
I mean, I think Jay Abraham comes to mind where he talks about you know, taking one thing and putting it into another industry.
Yep.
You know, I think that if I remember correctly, the story of Icy Hot was kind of that kind of thing where there was it wasn't being used for that, but then he reapplied it and you know, did some other stuff. But yeah, if you're not a Jay Abraham person, and if you're listening to this podcast, you really should be. You should look at Jay Abraham's stuff. But there's some
favorite book by Jay Abraham.
Sticking Point Solution.
Okay,
We may
I like
have to
that
go
one.
through that.
Getting everything
You can out of everything you've got.
that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Still a favorite.
They kind of say the same thing.
They do. He really
He's got his core
yeah.
principles that he talks about. So
Yeah.
either one of those are incredible books.
That book was a life-changing because I actually read that. That's you and I know that's a pretty dated book, but I was just getting in sales when I first read that book, and that was a game changer for me.
Have you read it in a while?
No, it'd
be interesting to go back through it.
It would be. It would be.
Because you would get totally different insights out of it than you did the first time.
It's probably been 6 years.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, same here.
Since I've last, and that was not getting everything that you can out of what you've got. Did I say that right?
Something like that. Close enough.
But that's the one stick solution, because that book came out about 6 years ago, and I read that book, and you're right. It was it was reaffirming some of his other stuff. But yeah, I love Jay Abraham. He's phenomenal. So
yeah,
definitely recommend any of his stuff that you see out there.
Absolutely. So we've got some other cool stuff coming up.
Yeah. What do we got? We got a guest coming up on future episode.
Yeah, we've got a guest coming up who is a Facebook ads guy. He's done some work for some big names online that I'm not going to mention. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Okay.
But he loves this book that we're going through right now.
Oh man.
So actually, it should be the next episode he'll be on, and so you want to tune in for that for sure. And he's going to talk about how he has applied what he's learned from breakthrough advertising, which he considers the Bible. That was the email he sent to me. And how he applies it to social media.
Interesting.
So very specific. He does a lot of, like I said, social media advertising, Facebook mainly. So it'll be interesting to get his take on a lot of what we've been talking about and how he applies that to create to, the different maturities markets, the sophistication of markets on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be really cool to watch. So we will have him.
That's great.
He'll be right here on the desk if you're watching on YouTube. Like
we'll flip the
monitor around. He'll be Max Headroom on on the show.
Maybe we'll encourage him to have his copy of the book.
So he definitely knows the book pretty well inside and out. So he was excited when he saw that's what we were talking about.
So I mean, and that explains a lot why we've spent a lot of time. I mean, we're on chapter 10. We're probably we're 3/4 of the way through. I would say we're getting to that
we've probably
point.
at this point we've doubled up a few chapters, and some we've actually taken multiple episodes. So we're probably around 10 episodes just on this book.
It is so important because since we've delved, since we spent so much time in this book, when I listen or read other books, it's kind of like, Influenced by Cialdini. You start to see everything that, a lot of the fundamentals of the core principles of these books, like Breakthrough Advertising, Influenced by Cialdini. When you start to listen to other things like Sales, Persuasion, like I mentioned that other book on the previous episode that I'm listening to called Never Split the Difference. It's a fantastic book on negotiation, but time and time again, when I'm listening to it, some of the principles from Breakthrough Advertising they stand out, and I'm thinking like, I got to mark that down.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
It's kind of like in the personal development space, everything seems to go back to the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Yep.
Like I can see so many places where that book, the principles in that book, the 7 principles show up in other books. One phrase from that book, somebody else will take and write a whole new book.
Absolutely.
Just off one phrase that was in that book 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is the same way. Like it's
incredible.
It's just so rich. And as you mature yourself as a salesperson, as a persuader, as an influencer, you will see this book in new light every time you read it. So
absolutely.
Too bad we're not making money off this book, but
no doubt, man. I think we might be. I don't know.
We'll see. So
well, looking forward to it. Yeah, looking forward to our next episode, which will be an interview, and looking forward to having our guest on.
Yep.
Should we?
Chris.
We'll
just leave it at that.
Okay, we'll leave it at.
He's a one-name guy.
We'll leave it at Chris. Okay, all you need to know is Chris.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be fun, and thanks for listening again. I don't think we really had a lot of comments on this. This
I like
particular.
it. I'm almost finished, so I liked it.
All right. So we give 2 thumbs up to the Ennis and Gunn. Again, Ennis and Gunn Bourbon Barrel Porter. We highly recommend it based on our own taste test.
Absolutely.
And we'll put a link to it. Again, thanks for listening, guys. As always, persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, all of those podcast platforms. Just do a quick Google search or a quick search in your podcast directory. Pull us up. Before you listen to your first episode, I want you to give us a 5-star rating just because we know.
You know it's that good.
We know we're that good. No, I'm just.
You can always go back and change it later,
exactly.
right?
You can always change your rating, man. Come on, please just give us that rating. But thanks for listening, guys. Hey, listen, have a great week, and we look forward to talking to you guys next time.
See ya.